She was 23 years old, and every single month for 3 years, she took a 4-hour bus ride just to see me for 30 minutes through a glass wall inside a prison. This is our story. I never thought I would be the kind of man whose story starts in a prison cell. But that's exactly where mine begins. I was 24 years old when the police came for me. It was a mistake, a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, standing next to the wrong person when something went terribly wrong. I won't bore you with the legal details, because that's not what this story is about. This story is about a woman named Aisha, and what she did for me during the 3 years I spent behind bars. We had been together for a little over a year before I was arrested. Just a year. Not even close to the kind of time that builds a lifetime bond, or so I thought. We were young, still figuring out our own lives, still learning what love even meant. When the verdict came and I was sentenced, I remember sitting in that small holding room, staring at the concrete floor and thinking the same thought over and over again. She will leave. She has to leave. Nobody stays for someone who can't even hold her hand for 3 years. The day my mother came to visit me for the first time, she told me Aisha wanted to come too. I said no. I told my mother to tell her not to come, not to write, not to wait. I said it as clearly as I could, because I meant it. I didn't want her to waste her 20s visiting a jail every month. I didn't want her friends whispering behind her back. I didn't want her parents looking at her with pity because their daughter was in love with a criminal, even an innocent one. I thought I was doing the right thing by pushing her away, but Aisha was never someone who listened when she believed in something. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. It was from her. My mother handed it to me with tears in her eyes, and I remember my hands were shaking before I even opened it. The first line said, "You don't get to decide this for me." I read that sentence maybe 20 times before I could move to the next line. She wrote that she understood I was trying to protect her, but that protecting her wasn't my job right now. Loving her honestly was. And if I truly loved her, I would let her make her own choice instead of making it for both of us. I cried that night in a way I hadn't cried since I was a child. Not because I was sad. Because for the first time since my arrest, I felt like someone still saw me as a person, not as a case number. The visits started the following month. Every single month, without fail, for 3 years. She would take a bus for almost 4 hours each way, sometimes in the rain, sometimes in unbearable heat, just to sit across from me for 30 minutes behind a glass partition. 30 minutes! That's all we were allowed. But those 30 minutes became the reason I woke up every morning inside that place. She never once complained to me about the distance, the cost of travel, or the awkward questions people asked her. Instead, she brought me stories. She would talk about her college classes, funny things her roommate said, a movie she watched, a recipe she tried and burned. Normal things. Small things. But to me, sitting in a place where every day looked exactly like the last. Those small stories were the only proof I had that the outside world was still moving. Still beautiful. Still waiting for me. Her family was against it from the very beginning. Her father told her directly that she was ruining her future by staying loyal to a man in prison. Her mother cried and begged her to move on to find someone with a clean record and a stable life. Her older brother stopped speaking to her for almost a year because of the shame he felt when people asked about his sister's boyfriend. She never told me the full extent of what she went through at home. I found out most of it much later, from my own mother, who had become close with her over those years. Aisha carried that weight silently every single time she walked into that visiting room. She left her pain outside the door and gave me nothing but strength. There was one visit I will never forget. It was during my 2nd year, in the middle of a particularly hard week for me. I had gotten news that my appeal was denied, and I felt like giving up entirely. I told her that day, through the glass, that she should stop coming. I told her I couldn't watch her lose her life waiting for a man who might never walk free again. I told her to go find someone who could actually give her the life she deserved. She didn't cry. She didn't argue loudly. She just looked at me and said one sentence that I still hear in my head to this day. She said, "I'm not waiting for you to get out. I'm choosing you every single day, whether you're in there or out here." That's not waiting. That's love. Then she stood up, placed her palm flat against the glass, and told the guard she'd see me next month. I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that visit. Because for the first time, I understood the difference between someone who waits out of obligation and someone who chooses. Again and again, out of love, during those 3 years. She finished her degree. She got her first job. She moved out of her parents' house into a small apartment with a friend, partly because the tension at home had become too much. She built an entire life while I was gone, and yet every single piece of that life still had room in it for me. She saved money from her job, not for herself, but to hire a better lawyer for my case. She spent her weekends researching legal aid, talking to advocates, writing letters to anyone who might help reduce my sentence. I didn't even know most of this was happening. I found out only after I was released, when my mother finally told me everything Aisha had done behind the scenes. The day my release finally came, I stepped outside those gates not knowing what to expect. 3 years changes a person. I was scared she would look at me differently, that the man standing in front of her wouldn't match the man she had been writing letters to and visiting every month. I was scared that the reality of freedom would break whatever fragile magic had kept us together through the glass partition. But there she was, standing outside, wearing a plain yellow dress, holding nothing but a small bag and a nervous smile. When our eyes met, neither of us said anything for what felt like a full minute. Then she walked up to me, and instead of a hug, she simply took my hand, the way she used to before everything happened, and said, "Okay, now our story actually starts." It's been 4 years since that day. We got married 18 months after my release, in a small ceremony with just our closest family and friends. Her father, who once told her she was ruining her life, walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes and told me privately that he was wrong about me. And even more wrong about underestimating his own daughter's strength. People often ask me what love really means, and I always give them the same answer. Love is not the big romantic gestures you see in movies. It's not flowers or grand declarations. Love is a woman taking a 4-hour bus ride every single month for 3 years just to sit behind a glass wall for 30 minutes. Love is choosing someone every single day, even when choosing them costs you comfort, relationships, and the easy path society expects you to take. Aisha never once made me feel like I owed her for what she did. She always said she wasn't saving me. She was simply refusing to abandon someone she loved during the hardest chapter of his life. But I know the truth. She didn't just wait for me. She held onto a version of me that I sometimes forgot existed, and she gave that version back to me the day I walked out of those gates. If there's one thing I want anyone watching this to take away, it's this. Real love isn't tested in the easy moments. It's tested in the moments when leaving would be so much easier than staying. Aisha taught me that staying, even when everyone tells you to leave, can be the bravest kind of love there is.